Okay, hello Lucy, let's see if we can solve the problem for you sitting in this kneeling position. So I'm guessing this is the position that you're finding super challenging. You're probably only getting to about here, or you might be able to sit back a little bit. But I'll give you a few alternatives you could do for sitting down, and then we'll try and work into this position by bringing the hips towards the heels. So I'm guessing even tapping the toes makes no difference, might even make it worse. So, a few things we could do, quite simply, cross the legs. Now, this one still might be an issue on the knees. It's not going to solve the issue. This is something to do instead. You can sit on a block, use a stack of books or some towels or something to modify and sit up. Now, if this isn't working out, a few other variations we could work into. You could take one leg out to the side, one knee pointing forward. So, it's kind of like one knee pointing forward, one knee out to the side. The only problem with this pose is that you have to do it on the other side really to make it even. So this is called like a 1990 stretch. You can play around, bring the shins out to make it more tense, but keep them close, it's fine. We'll spend as much time here. But I feel like we're doing stuff in the practice, so this one isn't probably as practical. You could even try sitting up in this position. Now, I actually find this posture actually quite challenging to sit up nice and tall. I wouldn't want to slump it, so I'd even sit on a block. And it's a good one to work into. It's a very innocent looking pose, but if your hamstrings are tight, it's quite challenging, so you might have to bend the knees, you might have to sit on a block or elevate the hips to a certain height just to make it a little bit easier. You could try, but I'm guessing this one won't feel as good, is like the half knee and the half squat. You might find this one a bit funky on the knee. I'll be interested, this probably feels as bad, so this one probably will skip as well. But if you do this one, you've got to swap it out just like the other one we did on the floor. So you've got the seated one with the legs out and cross-legged. But I'm guessing you're getting into this position where you're here and then you're probably doing all the exercises, the hand ones, all the arm exercises. So what I would do, just to sort of measure it out, is to get a stack of books. I'm guessing you haven't got 3 books with you. Use a roll-up duvet, a stack of towels. Kind of get creative with what you've got. It doesn't have to be this. But then you can sit down and sort of measure where you're at. So if we can at least get here, that's great. We can start to be here with no knee pain. If we've got some knee pain here, I'm gonna guess that it's gonna be the quads and the calves are the main culprits of this one. Sometimes the hamstrings and the tops of the shins, but for most people it tends to be the quads and the calves tends to be the issue. Sometimes the foot as well, because they're attached to the calf, so we might want to relieve the sole of the foot as well. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So this is going to be some soft tissue work. This will just create some space in the joints around it or in the muscles to give some more space in the joints. Now, this is something I would do before stretching, and you might have to start doing this before your practice just because your body needs to find more space before you move into it. Then we can build the space in the practice. So what I would do, if you can, this might be too advanced in the get-go. We do this on day 5, so I don't know if you've got that in quite yet. It's a roll-up mat. You could even get it tighter than that, which would make it more interesting. Or you keep it like this. And then you bring it to behind the knees, sit back. And you can start with the hands here in front of you. The more the weight's forward into the hands, the less weight's in the legs, the easier it is. The more you sort of shift back and you light out the hands, the more intense it'll get. So you can play with how much you're leaning forward. And then you can sort of oscillate side to side. And what you're looking for is like a massage in the hamstrings and in the calves. Now, if you haven't done this before, most people who are really tight here feel it straight away and don't have to put much pressure, especially the cyclists and the runners. This is something I like to do in start class, just to find space, and they just don't realize how much tension, how tonic those muscles are. And you can spend in each location 30 seconds to a minute. A minute might be excessive, but for me, sometimes I just like to be here doing stuff because my calves are tight. And what I do in my different positions is you take it behind the knee, middle of the calf, and then just above the ankle. And you can really play where you put it, exploring where you're tight. You're gonna find there's certain areas in your body that's a little bit more tight than others. As you side to side, you might just wanna stay still. You could also just move the hips, so you go from this untucked to this kind of cow position, tuck the toe, run over, cat position. You kind of play with that. That kind of works more with the hamstrings. You might feel the calves as well a little bit, but it's more kind of playing with the lip, the hamstrings. So it's a nice way to get 2 things in one. If that's not doable, you can put the hands in front of you. You can use a roll-up towel if you want to, but I'm guessing you've got a yoga mat. You might have to use a foam roller. Now you might not have one, this is something you might want to start to get, because it is quite nice to do a few things to mobilize the body, especially when you're tight. So it doesn't have to be this one, but this one's got some nice grooves on it that get kind of sinister. But if you're super tight in the calf, you might not have to go here. And the same idea, placing the foam roller either underneath the calf at the lowest point or the highest point, and then start the other side. I want to capture with the left leg on top, so some weight's coming down here. If you lean back, there's no weight in the calf, it's really hard to get any results out of this. And then you want to just kind of hunt around again. You can roll the foot inwards, roll the foot outwards. You might want to pause and breathe. I like to add some circles and move it through my foot, because it tends to pull the muscles into different positions. It gets way more interesting, way quick. And breathe. Put a little timer, spend 30 seconds in each spot. Going up, find a new spot. When you get crazy, you need to lift your way up, just to really work into it, get really aggressive. But you know, you want to be able to breathe in what you do, and just kind of find different things. So for me, I know my tightness is in this side of the calf, the inside, and I have to spend a bit of time releasing that. You could also then do that on the hamstrings by sitting on a chair and just kind of kicking the leg forward and back if it is the hamstrings. But the shin, top of the shins might be a culprit for you. So you can do the same thing here. Bring the top of the shin. This muscle on the outside of the shin. The inside is kind of more bony. Rest onto it. You could use the hands as much as you need to. Then once you get more synergy, you can pick up the other foot and come on top. But you know, it doesn't have to be the hardest thing in the world. It has to be something you can feel and breathe. And we're trying to relax the muscle, so you might need to start with less over time. And this might not feel anything. If you're not feeling anything, it's either you're not putting enough pressure into it, or the muscle doesn't need this. So you have to play around with what's tight, but I'm going to guess it's actually the back of the calves and the quads tend to be the main culprit. The quads are tight, it pulls the knee out of alignment and tends to cause a lot of tension in the knee. So this is the one that I would do. Again, start with the foam roller either above the knee or below the hip line, and work your way up or down, finding 3 different spots. And also be taking the leg. Let me see if we can do this. Yeah, might go out of frame for a second, but I'll show you. Might be here, kicking the foot, pivoting side to side. And if it was really interesting, I should really be doing this more often. And then you can try a different spot here, and just try and breathe. And if you find a good spot and you're like, that's it, that's the place I want to be, then be there, and just take some nice deep breaths in. And taking 4 to 5 seconds to inhale and exhale. See if you can make some change just by breathing. And then you'll notice it won't be as intense because the muscle will relax, and then you find a new spot. Work your way to the other part of the leg, up or down, and that will really relieve some tension through the quad. Then I would work through some stretching. So a few ways I'd work with the stretching just to reinforce the new positions you made through the muscles by relaxing them, is to stretch them out. So one way would be to use some blocks for the calves at least, or a step or a ledge of some kind. Stairs work really well for this. You can stand up on the block or the step, bring the big toes together and allow the heels to sink down. Still keep the core engaged, try to keep some awareness to the midline, and allow the heels to sink down. We'll essentially want to stretch the back of the calf now. For me, I don't really feel it unless it really goes to the edge, but what I would do, if you're really tight, you might have to then take one foot off, use it as support, and then come down. Bring the heels straight back down. Now, I don't really find this too much of a stretch anymore, but if you're really tight, you might find it here. You might spend a minute on each side, or up to 2 minutes with both legs, depending how tight you are. Looking for some sort of stretch down here. Sometimes you feel the hamstring, it's fine as well. Keep the legs active through the quad, sink down, and breathe. For the quad, this is probably the one that's going to make the biggest difference. I'm just guessing, because the quads, for some people, tend to be very tight. Is to use the wall to do a quad stretch. So slide one knee, let's say the left one for now, as close as you want to the wall. It could be here, it could be here, it really depends how tight you are. Step the right foot forward. And then from here, you might want to walk the legs, or walk the hands and the thighs. Now, what we're looking for with the hips is less of this kind of arch of the lower back. We want to think about scooping the tailbone under, squeezing the glutes. And you can hold the glutes and actually find this tension there. It's good. It kind of keeps the hips in the right position. Then over time, to bring the chest back towards the wall, but don't lose this position. It means nothing to be here doing this if you can't put the hips in the right position, squeezing the glutes, pulling the core in, and breathing. Now to make this more harder, you know, over time, over practice, exploring with this, you bring the knee back further and further, you rise up, the more you bring the chest up to horizontal and back towards the wall, the more intense it gets. Definitely keep the hips in the right position, and breathe. You can also push the foot into the wall, makes it a little more intense. We're just searching for some sort of stretch from here all the way here. Tends to be for some people, they just let go and maybe here and it's like, oh, I kind of feel it. But if you put the core in, the hips in the right position, you might have to change where the supporting foot is, the right one for me right now, and breathe. And it's very easy just to lose the hips. I have to kind of remind myself sometimes you can just touch, you just kind of squeeze, it's cool. And it gets so much more intense. So it's a good awareness exercise for the back of the hips to open up the front part of the hips and the thigh. Take at least, I don't know, a minute at least, I would say here. No more than 2 you need to really do. Spend a bit of time here. It's a nice way to open up through the quad. So you might have to be in a position where you're here at the beginning, because it's so tight, and just work on finding that scoop the tailbone. And I can still feel a stretch here, to be honest. Kind of feel it more into the high hip, and breathe. You can roll all the way from here, all the way down, but we're really trying to find more space here, and then you can test in this position, even on the blocks. Yeah, so we're going to try and see if we get you from this position, over time bring the hips towards the heels. Let me know how this goes on.